May I introduce my colleague Alex Abrams, who's going to join me this afternoon to talk about some case studies that we have from the UK about addressable TV and programmatic. So the question that we have is, how does programmatic and addressable TV impact traditional TV spending? So before I answer that question, or I try to allude to that question, does anybody have heard about addressable TV? Yes? Does somebody have heard about advanced TV? No? Anybody heard about programmatic? Yes. So there is this thing called programmatic, and programmatic is really about automation in the media buying and in the targeting. So you can target an audience, and you can automate the process, and you overlay across the audience data, some media data, and then you have the best of both worlds, very targeted, and the best of the media that is addressable for that typical audience. So it's really, really great. Now, in television, the issue is that television is linear. So in linear television, it's very difficult to only target you and you as well, who's watching the same program, but give you two different ads. And how's that called? Addressable TV. So in the UK, we have a market where addressable TV exists. In other markets, it's very difficult because technology doesn't allow that. So we are, at the moment, being on the cusp of a change in the industry. And today in the UK, roughly about 35%, or nearly 30% of the total media spend is on TV. In other markets, it's 40%, 45%. So this amount of media spend is about to change. So for you who is in procurement and media, you need to know what is changing, why it's changing, how fast it's changing. Because it has a material impact on how the advertising dollars are spent. And that's why we call this session the true cost of programmatic, because something is changing. So where in the traditional media, roughly about 12% of the media budget or the advertising budget is spent on production, what we call non-working. The remainder, 88%, is spent on the media itself. Now in search and display, which is the online, one of the online categories, you have an increase from the 12% to up to 20% of service fees, and the remainder is on media. So Google, etc., is that 80%, and the others are the advisory companies, the consultancies, the technology companies. So you spend less on media, but more on services. Now the third one is the mobile and social. So you heard this morning a session about influencers. That amount from the non-working is increasing up to 60% to non-working spending. So you, in the procurement department, marketing department, you need to accept that the guys who actually do these influencer campaigns, they get the majority of the budget versus the media owners who get a fraction of what you would normally spend. So you need to understand exactly how these influencers are being paid and how they're charging you for the service that you get out of it. Now, the question is, when you introduce programmatic, does that have actually an impact on production cost or in media? Does it remain the same? Because programmatic means you automate things, okay? And you can target better. So in a way, it means immediately you can save money, because automate means cheaper, less people. Targeted means more specific, means less media spend. So that is an assumption, but the reality is actually a little bit different. So all of us in the traditional media, we have seen this shift from large international campaigns where you had local adaptation in each market. And when you've seen that over time with the introduction of the transcreation agencies who do centralized adaptation of the budget of the campaigns, there was some change in it that the production cost for these transcreation centralized services have been reduced. So savings, efficiencies, speed, without a decrease in quality. And the media spend has remained the same. So it's an ideal case. Now what we see in the next slide is the change from addressable and programmatic TV from linear TV is that the production cost increase again because you're spending more money on the numbers of variations of one campaign because you can target these 3 people, so you need 3 types of campaigns. But just imagine the latest Ford campaign in the US, we had 32,000 variations of one campaign. The same car, 32,000 different. Now don't expect that the production budget was 32,000 times higher than a single campaign. That would be great for the production companies. No, it was just 10 or 15% higher, but still you need to calculate that 10-15% in your production cost because it has an impact. You can't expect an addressable programmatic campaign to be produced at the same cost like a normal single variant campaign. Now, why does the media side go down? Because in the addressable TV or in a programmatic campaign, you can reduce the waste of targeting, the waste of audience that you don't want to reach, but in linear TV you need to pay for because they're part of the bucket. Now, in the UK, we have a broadcaster called Sky, and Sky has, with Sky AdSmart and Virgin, a household reach of 42% in the entire UK. So when you want to reach a specific geocode, a specific income level, a specific interest in sports, you don't need to have a campaign all over the UK. You can go to Sky AdSmart and say, I want to have only an income level for that and that and that. I only want to have people in interest in fishing. I only want to have people who have at least 1 child or 2 children at toddler's age. You can target really, really, really well down, and you only spend the money on that target audience. So we have seen cases in the UK where an advertiser spent only, let's say, 10,000, 15,000 pounds on media on a television campaign. 70% of all Sky AdSmart advertisers have never advertised on television before. 70%. So it's a complete new ball game that is opening up now for advertising with addressable TV. The only way forward you can make this addressable, these versions of 30,000 or in the UK more likely like 1,500 happen, is through automation. There are 3 types of automation that you need to look into. The variation automation, then API integration, so you need to have interfaces between the media planning tools and then the production tools, and the delivery side where Honeycomb and IMD is coming from. And the third one is the vertical integration. So what we see right now as a trend are companies, agencies who were, like in the good old days, a fully integrated service provider. Because they work together integrated, the media planning, the creative, the production, the delivery, the automation, and the analytics afterwards to find out how good the campaign was. So right now, there are companies out there who produce a campaign, deliver the campaign, and 24 hours later, you have the report on the return on investment of that campaign. That is fascinating. So why is this relevant right now? Because we see the online video growth in the UK doubling from 2014, actually even more, nearly tripling, to 2018. And that 1.2 billion, nearly 1.3 billion pounds sterling in the UK, compared to 5 billion on television, means something. It means that video as a category is really important. Credit Suisse in America predicts that until 2030, so in the next 12 years, US television spend is doubling. Doubling. Why is that? Because what you've seen on the online video growth, that part of YouTube and Facebook amount will be decreasing in that time the moment that television becomes addressable. Because television has one great advantage, brand safety. So I don't know whether P&G or Unilever is sitting in this room. They had a very clear message to Facebook and YouTube. We're going to pull the money out of your media because we want to have a brand safety. Television is brand safety. The moment television becomes addressable, targetable, you will see that shift happening. And the ANA says that right now, you can go to the next slide, please. We will have a huge wave in the US where 80 million households are now addressable, available. Where right now in 2017, end of 2017, beginning of 2018, the amount of addressable TV has reached 50% of the decision takers who said, I've done it, or it's now part of the planning process. Now this is a massive amount of people who say, I want to do it. So when you go back to the office tomorrow or the day after, look into each of your market, because each market is very different, how far your market allows you to shift the linear TV budget or the online video budget into addressable programmatic TV. Last but not least, 5 takeaways before you see the sample case from Alex. The addressable TV spend as such may not be lower, okay, but it will allow a precise targeting of micro segments at a far lower budget. So what we see with addressable TV is that there are campaigns which only have a 20,000, 30,000 pounds budget, but you can spend the same amount of money, but reach much more targeted the audience you want to reach. The addressable TV spend will grow and take share of the online video, what we've seen from the US. Some markets seem to be on a major brink of major shifts in regards to advanced TV. So USA, UK, and Germany and Australia are the markets which are the most advanced on addressable TV at the moment being. The linear TV, surprisingly, but good for the broadcasters, remains very stable. Has been stable in the UK, has been stable in all over Europe, has been stable in America. So we don't foresee a big shift in the TV spend going down on linear. And next, the TV campaign budget will change their composition once they become multivariance campaigns for addressable TV. So if you are able to have addressable TV, you will need to watch out that the production costs are growing. It's not because the agency is doing a bad job. They need to be much more targeted, producing many more variations, and therefore they will ask more money for that. The only way to compensate that is be more targeted in your media spend. And let's do maybe 2 campaigns, 3 campaigns with less media spend. Overall, it's the same media spend, but you are much more targeted. With that, I hand over to Alex, who talks about a campaign we did with our partner Never Know for Specsavers in the UK.
Will you mind clicking, please? So just some people are writing notes. We're actually going to post these slides on the internal social channel when we're finished. What we're showing here, these are some of the clients that have gone through this process. We're going to specifically focus on Specsavers in a moment, but just to pull out one of the examples, because I know Danone are here, that Danone ran a campaign using social user-generated content in television and video advertising, and it generated over 6 weeks a 30% uplift in Facebook audience growth, which when you go on to the next slide, you see why that was important. So what we were doing here in partnership with Never Know was to encourage people to put in, load up to Facebook with a certain hashtag, their selfies, and then those selfies would be then put into the video ad, and you'd get this lovely position on the beach in the video ad where your picture would be in there. And then obviously over social channel, we can change that every time, so you're always in the ad. But then we can go even a bit further than that, and we can start to automate the localization of the ad exactly in here. So we've circled 3 things. You can't quite see it, but the mug says ITV, the TV in the back says ITV, and on the right it says ITV. So this was over various channels, various regions, various areas. And through automation, we we could actually personalize that TV ad to that particular region, and we could change the content as it was going out for various places. And we were able to do this, you know, actively over multiple versions. So that was one little example there. So we really see that there are 3 applications of this automation. Those applications are applying dynamic social content, so that's user-generated content. And we did a campaign for Coke in Argentina where we put Twitter feeds in about why people were enjoying the experience of Coke. We changed the ads twice a day over a 2-week period. It had an amazing response in Argentina. We can then get content change. So the Specsavers case study, which I'm going to come on to, was where we automated the process of changing the content very quickly. So it was very dynamic content changing every day. And the third one is really targeting and addressable, where you can use the ability to overlay phone numbers, locations. You can call to actions can change particular locations. We could be advertising depending on the weather. Why not? Why are we doing barbecue advertising in the northwest when it's raining and only sunny in the southeast? I mean, these are the sorts of questions that I think we should be looking at and addressing. So the way this worked is you create the template, and this is where the magic goes on, and this is where you need to be working with the very best production content producers who can create the right template. We then have an application, a platform that we partner with called Story, which allows the client and the agency to verify the content, the dynamic content that's going in. Because the last thing you need is someone putting something awful in there. I did see a campaign not long ago from a certain food manufacturer, I shouldn't say who, that tried to do this, and people were putting in pictures of Saddam Hussein and Osama bin Laden, and it was going on to social channels because they weren't monitoring it properly. So you've got to have this monitoring piece in the middle because the general public will take advantage of it otherwise. And then you create automation in order to create as many versions as you could possibly want. We're doing a campaign at the moment with 1,000 video ads. So specifically on the Specsavers campaign that we did, this was very simply, the brief was to change people's attitudes to eye health. I should say very clearly, we're a tech company, not a creative agency. We implement, we facilitate these. This was why we've got OMD up at the top, as they were the lead agency on this. And very simply, the solution was to make a TV reactive campaign, provide the biggest ever reactive TV campaign in the world. And that was the outcome. And then it was really to find the solution providers that could do this. And they came to us and to Never Know. And we were able to create a campaign that changed every day for 50 days. And it was reacting on the news the day before. So some of the incidents we were lucky with, the royal engagement, and others were planned, such as the various football derbies that were going on. But these were 50 ads every day, and the results of these ads were really compelling because people were really brought into it. And I think if you see the output, we were able to, this is the stats that we got from OMD, was that new customers accounted for 18% of new tests. That was a pretty impressive stat there. 15,000 more eye tests over the period, with people actually understanding the importance of eye health. And finally, we said 40 ads created over the period and delivered throughout the United Kingdom, creating a really amazing award-winning campaign that I think really shows what is possible in this space.